Welcome to Talk South Asian to Me, Season 2. My name is Mashal.
And my name is Anusha. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. Central and hear us react to each other's stories about mental health and growing up in different South Asian households.
And remember, this podcast is not therapy. Engage with what feels entertaining and resonates with you, and leave what doesn't. All right, you ready for our topic reveal?
I'm ready.
It is letter D. We're on letter D in Season 2. And the topic is, drumroll please, digital addiction.
I'm excited.
You're excited?
I'm always excited for all our topics.
I know, me too. I'm like, we're biased.
Definitely biased.
But I will say, like, out of all the topics we've done, like, this is one of the topics I feel like could be really, really relevant to maybe like a majority or even more audience members. So I'm excited to dive into this and hear each other, or share my story and hear your story.
Yeah, I can't wait. And I'm so excited for like the research behind this, because this is actually something that I've been trying to be more aware of and make some lifestyle changes around. So I'm so excited to hear the research behind it.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to share it too. I learned a lot of new things. So I kind of use a variety of different resources. I use Psychology Today, Science Direct, Washington Post. I sprinkle in some of research articles too. So I'm kind of using those different resources and citing them for the information I'll share today. So to define online, when I was researching digital addiction, internet addiction was also coming up. So there are a lot of researchers, scientists, psychologists, psychiatrists were using internet addiction and digital addiction like simultaneously. So they were pretty, like, in the literature, they were synonymous. So internet addiction or digital addiction is the belief that people can become so dependent on using their mobile phones or other electronic devices that they lose control of their own behavior and suffer negative consequences. This is from Psychology Today. Just like quick, simple definition. Just to share a little bit more information and background about this. This was something I did not know, and I was very intrigued by this. I don't know if you know this, but that technology and digital addiction is not yet listed as a condition in the American Psychiatric Association 5th edition of the DSM-5, which is a Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. But they do make a statement that it does require more research. So they kind of think like, okay, this could be like, a mental health disorder or like something surfacing. Yeah. And then the World Health Organization in 2018 stated that they named something like a gaming disorder and defined it as a loss of control over gaming behavior, prioritizing gaming over other activities, containing or even increasing time spent gaming despite negative consequences. This is a little bit more like honed into gaming, but again, it falls along the lines of digital and internet use. Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting that the World Health Organization acknowledges it as a disorder.
Well, I might not be entirely accurate in the statement, but I think from what I've heard, isn't gaming considered like a sport now?
I don't know. I didn't look into the gaming part as much because I was focusing on the digital internet, but maybe. I don't know. It's interesting.
That's what I've heard some people talk about that in the past, how gaming is kind of like the popularization of gaming, video gaming in particular, has become so widespread that it's now in some places like considered kind of a sport. So I thought that was really interesting. A video game being a sport.
Right. That is interesting. And then the Washington Post article that I want to talk about is titled "Tech Addiction is Real. We Psychologists Need to Take It Seriously." It was published in March 18, 2019. So I'm just going to share some quotes from this article that spoke to me. So U.S. teens average approximately 9 hours per day with digital media. Tweens, so the younger than teens, spend 6 hours. And even our youngest, which is the ages 0 to 8, are spending 2.5 hours daily at least in front of a screen. Wow. So there's some numbers when it comes to like the children in our country. And then the average adult in the US spends more than 11 hours a day in the digital world, according to research. And, when you think about it, right, a lot of people use their computers for work, right? Like the digital world is just so ingrained in their way of life that you're in front of a screen or you're in front of your phone, like for that many hours a day.
Yeah, we're in front of a screen right now.
Right? Yes, we are. And then if you're listening to it on your cell phone, you're in front of a screen as well, or watching on YouTube. The University of Pittsburgh published some research about this, and they found some higher rates of depression and anxiety among young adults who engage in many social media platforms than those who engage only in two. So it sounds like two or less, the likelihood of depression, anxiety is less. But if you're engaging in multiple, more than two, then there's like a correlation with depression and anxiety. An author and psychologist named Jean Twenge, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, found that the psychological development of adolescents is slowing down, and depression, anxiety, and loneliness, which she attributes to tech engagement, are also on the rise. Are these like numbers that you find surprising at all? Do you feel like...
Not at all.
Yeah, me neither.
Not at all. I feel like I have conversations about these all the time with like family and friends about how like I've got generation kids and even like us adults, and like, no, this does not surprise me. And as far as the impacts on mental health, I mean, that's another reason why I'm so excited to talk about today, because this is something that I have been becoming more aware of, noticing like how it impacts us, screen time in general. And I'll get into it a little bit later about what I've kind of found anecdotally, but it's fascinating to me, and it does not surprise me, this almost like becoming a epidemic of sorts that we need to pay attention to.
Right. I mean, even in my work, like working with like really young kids, like youngest too, right? Like these kids have their own tablets. It's like their siblings' tablet, their tablet, the parents' cell phone, like their own computer, right? Like everybody has a device. So it's really interesting. Like, I know we've heard like the term like iPad kids, and I feel like that's something that like there's a lot of research that's going into that too. It's just like how is this early onset of technology exposure affecting kids nowadays?
Oh yeah. I've seen a lot of like learning and development specialists talk about how the more screen time a child has, the more tantrums they have.
Interesting.
That alone was like that. Actually, when I found that out, I think I saw a video somewhere, probably on Reels or TikTok, to be honest. When the specialists put out these educational information videos, I saw it somewhere, and that's what kind of sparked for me this curiosity into, well, if this is what's happening with kids, and granted, they're still developing,
right?
How does this show up in adults? And I'll talk about it later, but I actually found that it's somewhat similar. We might have a little bit more prefrontal cortex development, so that we're able to maybe not be as impacted, but the way that it manifests in children, the tantrums, the need for more stimulation, more entertainment,
right?
The inability to regulate, all of those things show up in adults too, the more that we engage.
It can manifest in different ways. If it's not indirect, it's indirect. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, like I actually wanted to like look into more of like the psychiatric symptoms on internet addiction disorder, or like just internet addiction in general. And I found this one article. It's called "The Effect of Psychiatric Symptoms on the Internet Addiction Disorder in Ifshan's University Students." So this, I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Sorry, it's Isfahan University. So Isfahan University is located in Iran. This research article was published in 2011 in the Journal of Research in Medical Sciences, and the researchers surveyed 250 university students. And they use these checklists and different measures and interviews to learn more about, the correlation between internet addiction and different psychiatric symptoms. So they found an association between some symptoms such as somatization, sensitivity, depression, anxiety, aggression, phobias, and psychosis, with the exception of paranoia and diagnosis of internet condition after controlling for age, like they controlled for different other factors like age, sex, education level, marital status, and different type of like studies. So I thought it was really interesting that they found this huge, strong correlation between internet addiction and all these. And I think what goes off to like what you said, right? Like if a child is more likely to have a tantrum, after the use of frequent and unhealthy frequent use of a device or technology, then what happens to adults, right? These different types of psychiatric symptoms can happen.
Absolutely. Actually, a little bit of a throwback. Do you remember, Michelle, when we were talking about the sleep episode and from season 1, last episode, and we were talking a little bit about the researcher, the scientist? I was giving that information. I think if you recall, I said something about how this the scientist found that any screen time, even for adults, creates some kind of low key, low dose stress response in our body as adults. So like, obviously we can only imagine for children, 2 hours, or even like preteens, that level of screen time, 6 hours, 9 hours. I mean, it's a long time, even at low doses, to be stressing the body.
Right. You're absolutely right. I wanted to look into a little bit more of like how one person can assess, their own internet use and see like, if it's affecting or if it does it have to build more awareness, right? Does it have any consequences for yourself? So one way, this is the Psychology Today article as well, one way one can assess is to ask yourself if your basic needs or your child's, if you have children or other people that you're taking care of, are their needs being met as well? Your own needs and so do you sleep enough, right? Are you staying up and scrolling like sometimes I'm guilty of doing, right? Like scrolling and then it's late at night and you're not getting enough sleep. Are you eating healthy, right? Are you making time to exercise? Are you going outside and spending time in the sun or outdoors? Are you socializing in person with others, right? So like the author of this article says that the real harm of screen time may lie in missed opportunities for growth and connection, which again, even at a young age when children are developing and they're developing socially, emotionally, cognitively, like when you miss those opportunities for connection, like that can deplete your ability to develop. It could be harmful to the brain. And so some more kind of effects that this article talked about is they can decrease focus and attention span while increasing the need for more constant stimulation and instant gratification, which is something I feel like I've heard about and read about too previously, looking into this, is that a lot of people, like when they're scrolling and their attention span can decrease and they kind of want that instant gratification when it comes to their own relationships or constant stimulation, or have a hard time like having silence or like sitting, having some downtime with their loved ones.
Yeah, definitely.
So what are some things that people can do to decrease the excess use? Some authors suggest to set time limits on your unstructured time, right? So I know nowadays, yes, with technology, we can set like our screen time limits, right? App limits. I've heard about people like putting a timer on their different apps. So those are the different ways, right? Setting those limits, which again takes an active role, right? For you to go on and say, okay, I'm going to only give myself 30 minutes for this, and whatever it is. Taking it, so like, taking advantage. So once you have that extra free time, once you build that awareness of like putting your phone to the side or whatever your technology liking is, right? Whether it's TV, movies, or phone, or computer, or gaming, you kind of, once you set those limits, like immediately using that free time and kind of spending it, replacing that time with socializing in person with other people or doing like hobbies, rekindling your old interest or going outside, and then being more aware of how you're feeling, both physically and emotionally. And of course, like seeking professional help as well. So those are just like some tips and things that I got from online, from my research about what one can do. Do you have any others that you wanted to add?
I did. Actually, when you started this, I had this one thought. I was like, oh, there's this thing I want to tell Michelle about, and I totally
Yeah.
forgot by the time I listened to you.
Oh, no, it's okay.
I don't remember what it was, but I will say, oh, okay, I remember now. There's one thing I heard, like some of my friends, what they do is, I have a friend who used to have one of those like apps that would time her out of social media. But I mean, you can bypass those. And so
Right, you
I hear
can.
that sometimes, particularly with my clients, when I bring up, oh, I heard that there's this app that you can try out. They talk a lot about like, yeah, but like I bypass it. I don't follow through on it. Totally get that. And the other thing, the same friend talked to me about is she prefers, instead of like the timeout apps, she prefers the apps, like I think Calm app does this, where however, like maybe 30 minutes that you're on social media or like 15 minutes, I think you can set it. It will just kind of chime in and remind you and say, hey, you've been on this app for some time now. Take a minute to breathe. And it won't unlock the social media until you breathe for that like 1 minute or 2 minute or whatever you set it at.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that better.
Yeah.
It's easy
Maybe
to
a little
bypass.
bit feasible. Yeah.
For sure. And I think like what we talked about in our like time management podcast in season 1, right? Like penciling in or scheduling time for social media separately, but then also like the subsequent or before that planned time, like scheduling it time for other things, right? Because when you plan and you set your mind to something, you're more likely to do it. So I think I agree, like using the different sources that don't let you bypass, right? But also finding replacement, because that will help improve that behavior as well.
Yeah.
Dig in cognitive behavior therapy, right? Replacement behaviors.
Yeah, exactly. And, obviously these things they're not easy. You're literally fighting against something pleasurable and trying to replace it with something that's, what's the word? Like long-term rewards versus short-term.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Instant gratification versus like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Versus delayed gratification. And we are in an age, because of the digital consumption that we engage with, that we are kind of priming our brains for instant gratification. So it's not easy. It'll take time and patience, but like with all things that are healthy, working out, the health journeys, taking time isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's about sustainable progress.
Yeah, you're right. I think those are all great points that you made, right? Sometimes even the tools that we have might not be useful. So it's important to like keep attempting and trying, and then keeping those things in mind, that like it won't be an overnight fix or easy fix, right? These are habits that are developed over time, right? I'll go into this in my story too, but like we've been exposed to technology for like forever, right? Like ever since we were young. And so I think it's important to keep in mind that unlearning this habit or behavior will take time, because it's been ingrained for such a long time. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to go into kind of like the South Asian relevance. I found a research article about, it's titled Prevalence of Internet Addiction in South Asia, Systematic Review. So the title is like, right there. In 2018, it was published. And so the authors and researchers of this article kind of looked through all the literature that talks about internet addiction in different South Asian countries. And they kind of reported the different rates. So in South Asia, in Bangladesh, it was 46.1% of internet addiction, or the population had some form of internet addiction. 0.4% to 11.8% in India.
Wait, like 0.4?
To 11.8% in India, yeah. Well, you also have to think about the India population is so big. It's so large.
Compared to, Bangladesh is a bit of a smaller country, sure.
Yeah. 0 to 1.3% in Nepal, 35 to 40% in Pakistan. And the sample size, I think they only kind of talked about it in India in general, where I was reading at. It was 211 to 1,150 participants. So if you could see, like, even with that large number, though, wait, hold on. Sorry, I'm reading this wrong. It was 46.1% in Bangladesh, 11.8% in India, and then 1.3% in Nepal, and like 40% in Pakistan. And the participants that were kind of reviewed in these articles were like college students or school students, and their ages range between 13 and 26. So this population, these numbers are based on like teens and young adults, like 13 to 26-year-olds.
They're more likely to be really on their phones anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So those are some numbers on that. I like tried to do a little bit more research on like the U.S., the South Asian American experience, but it was really a lot of general information. There's a lot of information about like Southeast Asian Americans and Asian Americans with like gaming and things like that. But when it came to like South Asian Americans, it was pretty generalized with all the research that I've kind of shared and all the numbers that I've shared about the U.S. So yeah, that's the research. Anything you feel like?
I bet there's more research to be done though in this area, because I mean I get it, it's college students and like they picked a couple of countries, but I feel like there's more to that story. Like that's fascinating.
There is. I mean, and even the American Psychiatric Association like warrants for more research, right? There is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm sure there's starting studies happening right now. So
I'm sure, because it is something that people are becoming more and more aware of anyway. So I'm sure that there's current ongoing studies. But that number, like 11%, that's shocking to me. That it's just 11%, really?
I know.
Anecdotal, but when I went to India, I feel like everybody and their mother has a phone. Which means that usually when I just am out and about, everyone's like just kind of like on their phone no matter where you are. So that's really surprising to me.
I think you make a good point also, but because it's important for us to consider that even though this article was published in 2018, it was a systematic review. It wasn't a study.
Yeah.
So I wonder if these articles that were published with these numbers were like earlier in time, whereas I'm sure like recently with the new social media platforms and like all these new, because like Snapchat came out when I was like in college, early college, late high school. So like I'm pretty sure like these numbers are much, much higher because it's just a systematic review, right? It's not the actual studies done recently in 2018. Yeah. And I'm sure like even COVID also probably changed those numbers drastically as well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right. Good things to consider with those numbers and to take them with a grain of salt. Yeah. But yeah, that's my research. Do you feel like I missed anything that you've heard that would be worth mentioning, or feel like you heard anything else that I didn't add, or you would like to add?
Like that all pretty much made sense to me. And I thought that was really thorough. You covered not just the research, but the how to deal with it, how to move forward from it. So that was really important. Cool, helpful tips.
Which is important.
Absolutely.
Helpful for me too, as I get into my story.
Oh yeah. I can't wait. I'm so ready to hear it.
Okay. So mine's more like a reflection and like just, it's not really like a one story. It's just more of like a reflection on my life and how technology has played a role in my life and everything. So kind of start when I was young, right? I feel like cell phones or phones, TVs, computers have always been part of my life since I was a little girl. I really, till this day, enjoy going to the movies. I love watching TV, watching like snuggling up with a blanket on the couch and watching like a fun movie, whether it's like a old timey Bollywood movie that I would like to watch, or a new movie, or a Disney movie, whatever I would like to watch. I just love doing that, right? And then I love having technology to be able to connect with my long distance friends and family. And even like the early internet days where, I don't know if you remember this, like the dial-up where you had to go like, it would make that noise like, you had to like wait for like the dot to move or the numbers to move. And then like if you had a landline, like you can't use the phone and the internet at the same time.
I know.
Right. And during those times, I remember being so excited. I think I was in like elementary school. I can't remember exactly. But I do remember like getting so excited about the internet, and I would like go to YouTube and like watch fun, like, listen to music. I think that was like really important to me, was like using the internet to like listen to music. And then I would like play games, like, the pinball machine game or like the different desktop games. Yeah. So like, I enjoyed using the computer in that way. And, in grade school, as I was getting older, I'm sure you remember this too, like our teachers started incorporating technology part of the curriculum as part of our learning. I remember attending technology as like a special, like music, PE, like technology was its own special. Like we would go and learn about computers. I started using the computer more and more for school assignments. I remember I took a keyboarding class in high school. It's called BCIS. And I'm so grateful for it because I still use those like typing skills to this day. But I remember that being a course in itself. Like we were competing on like the words per minute score and all of that. Yeah. Did you take that class in high school? I can't remember.
I did.
Were we in the
I
same
had a
class?
lot of fun. Wait, was this in high school?
Yeah.
I
Maybe
felt
not.
like my memory of this was earlier on, but maybe it was in high school.
No, I remember it was like BCIS 1, BCIS 2. I don't even remember what the name of that acronym is, but it was a keyboarding. And it was like it was like a computer room. Everybody was in front of a screen and a computer, and we were all like just competing. Yeah.
I had good work. I was very proud.
Yeah, me too. I was very proud as well. It was very competitive.
Yeah, I can do it.
Yes, exactly. And then, if you think about it, like we were writing our essays, like all everything, college applications, everything became digital. And like in college, like laptop was my like textbook almost. Like I was taking it to every class. I was using it for notes. Like technology has just been ingrained in my life for so long, right? Even television, like after school watching Arthur or like Cyber Chase or like Saturday morning, we didn't have cable.
Cyber Chase.
Yeah. And Dragon Tales, right? Like I just like have such good memories associated with technology when it was, like that. So like having the internet at my fingertips, like social media at my fingertips, I feel like was a blessing, but also a curse. Like it was really nice to have easy access to information, nice to have access to social media, connecting with others, but I didn't realize how much it took time away from being present in the moment with my family and friends. I even like till this day, sometimes I can see that there are numerous times where I'm out with my family at dinner and everyone's just on their phone scrolling or doing something. And I have to be like, come on, like everybody put your phone down. Let's talk. Like I love the young, I used to do this too with my friends. I don't know if you ever did this. And I think like Gen Z is starting to do this too, is like everybody put your phone in the corner of the table and then whoever touches their phone first has to pay the bill.
Pays first. Yeah.
And so that like, that was like, that's nice that even the younger generation is realizing that. And like, even dinner with my family growing up, like while I just remember like in elementary school, high school, we would have dinner in the evenings, like especially Friday nights, the TV would be on and we're eating dinner. Yeah. It just became a norm. And so like, it was just very normalized. Like, I feel like, and as I was thinking about this and reflecting, like, I get it. Like my parents didn't come from a place where they had easy access to internet or they had easy access to like watch funny YouTube videos or easy access to like watch TV whenever they want. So now it's like a luxury, like they just want access to it all the time. But it's just taken away, I think has substituted so much time from like connection. Even like for me, like I find myself scrolling on social media apps without even realizing how much time has passed. Like I like it would be like 9:00 and I'm scrolling, and then the next thing I know, it's like 9:30 and I'm like, where did these 30 minutes go? Like just in scrolling.
Yeah.
And I would say like during COVID time, my reliance on the internet and my amount of time I spent scrolling like drastically increased as well. And I think I have personally reflected and noticed that I think it has contributed to my tendency to have a short attention span sometimes. And so I'm just learning to like reflect on that and figure out like how do I want to like make some changes, because not at that step. I mean, I've heard about those apps and things like that, but I haven't gotten to the point to like use them yet. So I'm excited. I'm glad you told me about the Calm app. I think it'll be definitely worth trying as a tool. But it's so interesting. Like even when I go out to eat, and I look over and there's like a couple sitting next to me and they're all both on their phones, right? It's just so common. It's so common and so normalized. And I do feel like sad about it. Like I'm just like, we're missing out and being present in the moment. We're missing out on like that physical connection, right? And being physically together, and like, being a newlywed, like my husband and I have made a constant and active effort to like spend quality time with each other in the evenings, because we both have very busy schedules. And so we started out like just, oh yeah, let's just watch TV while we eat. But now like we made it, an effort to like eat at the table, not in front of the TV. So like we can connect every day, even though we both have been busy with work or we're busy with other obligations. So it's been really nice. We've been doing this for like a month now, a month and a half, and we've been making time for each other, and it's been really nice. We've been able to connect, and so without the digital distraction. So yeah, it's been nice, but I do need to personally work on like my reliance on like social media, and I think TikTok is like my arch nemesis. There we go. It's just like, I love it because it's so like, I love that my For You page, like it's just so funny, or like Instagram, like all the dog videos, right? Like I just love it, but I just need to make sure like it doesn't interfere with the other important things in my life. Not even other, it's not important things in my life.
Yeah. So you just got to find your balance between fun,
right,
to towing the line of addiction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where I am with my digital world.
That's awesome. I'm so proud of you guys for, like so early on kind of getting in front of it and being like, no, we need to make more time,
Yeah.
Is it, I mean, honestly, relationships are so trial and error anyway. It's amazing that you could set that intention and like really stick with it. Cause I think sometimes for us, sticking with it is our like bane of our existence.
It's hard. Yeah. Building routines, working with 2 different adult schedules, right? Like it's not easy. Thanks.
After a long, hard day of work, some of us want to turn our brain off, right? And just like mindlessly scroll. But mindlessly scrolling can be fun in some moments, but it doesn't give us energy back.
Right. It's training. Like
sometimes it's even more draining.
Yeah. And I think it's the instant gratification. Like I'm just so excited to watch funny videos. I laugh in the moment, but afterwards I'm like, this didn't help me. Like it was just instant gratification. Yeah, I'm drained. I should have just slept. That's what I tell myself. Why didn't you just go to sleep? You lost 30 minutes of sleep.
Oh, Mashal, how could you? I know. Yeah, exactly. And like that, I think that's something that's a common struggle for so many people, right? Is the very end of a long day, like that's all you want to do, or on your break in between, dealing with too much socialization or too much work. That's all you want to do. But and there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it just becomes, if we're constantly only relying on it, it stops serving us.
And if it's like modeled right in your household, I think like another reason why my parents like are so reliant on their enjoyment is technology, like watching a drama or watching videos, funny videos at home, is just because they don't know how to de-stress. Like it hasn't never been modeled to them,
right?
And
of
like
course.
And I like tell my mom, like, I'm like, you watching this drama videos is not helpful. Like, it's not going to relax you. Because I would ask her, like, oh, what are you doing to relax? And she's like, I'm just watching my TV on the couch. I'm like, that's not relaxing.
Yeah. And if it's one of the like Pakistani or Indian soap opera type serials, right? Then sometimes maybe that will raise your blood pressure. That's like that tension.
Or stress you out even more.
Yeah, exactly. All that dramatics, and it's like, what's happening?
Right. And I've watched some of them myself, and they're really great to watch, but it shouldn't be your sole thing. It shouldn't be your sole thing of like your hobby or interest or your relaxation method, right? And it's like almost as if like that's all even my dad, like he comes down for dinner and immediately turns the TV on. Like it's like, is it a substitute of not being able to understand how to make those social and physical, like, those connections in the moment, right? Like, are you not having the ability to speak about your emotions or talk about yourself, or not knowing how to because you never had to growing up, right? I think there's so many layers to it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's probably an initial layer. Then there's it's the easy approach, and then after you blink, and then a couple of weeks, months go by, and now it's just a habit. It's just what you do.
Right. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my
Well,
story.
thank you for your trip down memory lane. I totally forgot about some of these like really awesome TV shows and like these classes.
Yes.
Oh, and that actually reminds me, as you're talking about it, I had this vivid memory from elementary school.
Mm.
And this was the first time that the school got like cute, tiny, compact little computers, and they gave it out in class, and we had to all learn how to like, where do you put your fingers? Where do you type them?
Wow, that's interesting.
I can't remember what grade it was, but it was quite young in elementary school, and like third grade or second grade, I think. And
that is young.
But what a cute memory to remember, though.
Yeah, it is. Like a little mini toy.
I know. Literally felt like it too. Although when you're that young, even that didn't feel like a toy. That was like, oh my God, this is so big and heavy. And it was heavy though, to be honest.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything else you wanted to share before I jump on my fun story?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Well, my story is kind of like yours. I recall my primary screen growing up. I was not an iPad kid. Back in the day, my primary source of the screen was TV. And I really only had TV time when my parents weren't using it. So right after I get home, I would watch like Clifford or Blue's Clues, what have you. And that would be my screen time. And even back then, other than like the cartoons I might have watched, when I was really, really young, I think I watched maybe a little bit more than when I was like more growing up. Like once I started school, I started watching it less, obviously, like maybe an hour a day. Like maybe I'd have one show I'd watch. And each show back then was like, what, 20 minutes? Maybe max. I used to watch 2 shows if they happened to fall on the same day. But primarily back then, thankfully, my parents like pushed me into like extracurriculars a lot. So the extracurriculars that I did, not including sports, I was never good at sports, super bad at them. And those were only on the weekends, thankfully. But usually the extracurriculars that I did were like arts and crafts or like reading. So I was really engaged in that more than screens back in the day.
That's good.
Yeah. And I don't actually have a lot of memory of my parents even watching a lot of TV. They were just so busy. This was like early on, new early immigrants. So they were always like really just working their butts off at work. And so they were constantly busy. I don't really recall seeing them watch a lot of TV. When I got into high school, though, that's when I kind of saw my parents kind of indulging more in TV. Before then, usually it was like movies on the weekends. Maybe like every other weekend we'd go to a movie. So in high school, what we started doing was we would grab dinner and then we would have like Indian singing programs in the background or Indian game shows in the background. And that would be kind of like the background music. And sometimes we did that. And sometimes my mom was like, no, we need to sit down and talk to one another and talk about our day.
Yeah, that's good.
But
go on, team.
It kind of went both ways. Later in high school, when I got really, really busy, applying to colleges, working for SATs, around those times, I basically just stopped eating dinner at the table altogether. I usually would just eat it while studying or something.
Yeah.
So then I know like my parents used to watch sitcoms. My mom loved like Full House, like Seventh Heaven.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was called back in the day. So I know that would be their primary like relaxation by that point for my parents. And I also vividly recall, I love to make fun of them for this. I vividly recalled there was a stretch of a period in high school where they were obsessed. When I say obsessed, I mean obsessed. They had 24-hour movie watching marathons.
Wow.
Or like TV show watching marathons.
24-hour, like actually?
Yes.
Wow.
Actually. No joke. Ironically, it was for the TV show 24, which was, I don't know if you've heard of 24, but it was like Jack Bauer, and like he works for, was the FBI or CIA? I think FBI. And he has to, every single episode is like basically 24 hours. So it's like, or every single season is 24 hours and every episode is an hour, I think. I don't know. But essentially it was very captivating and very like action packed. And so they were
Yeah.
like really captivated and
Yeah.
engrossed. They did 24-hour movie marathons on the weekends until they
Wow.
finished it. Oh yeah. They were like
Wow. They're dedicated.
crazy about it. It was really
They're
funny.
dedicated.
Oh yeah. So my binging now, I attribute to them. I don't binge often anymore, but when I did, and they got on my case for it, I'd be like, oh yeah, well, remember the 24 incident? I love bringing it up.
That's so funny.
But throughout college and like generally in school, I didn't actually use screens that much. I felt like I used it quote unquote appropriate amounts.
Mm.
I feel like I noticed my uptake of use start really more once I began adulting, post college, post grad school. That's when I started noticing, because I don't have to study anymore. Right. I have all this free time. And I've been so distanced from my usual like hobbies when I was a kid, because I didn't have time for them when I was studying, or as much time.
Yeah.
So suddenly forgetting all these hobbies, wonderful, like really truly relaxing, energizing activities, I just started focusing on like social media and mindlessly scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar. Me too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
COVID was like
stories.
That. Yeah. There's so much free time.
And like so much free time. Plus we were stuck at home all day. There's only so much you can do. I think we all collectively kind of turn towards our digital devices and
to connect with others. Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah. That's what it is. That's what felt right in the moment.
Right.
And now we gotta find our way back somehow.
Exactly.
I found I think this happened about 2 years ago. I found that the more I was on social media, like I actually could feel myself being more like cranky, in the sense that I would be a little bit irritable, because I was like, oh, I don't want to go do the responsible things and chore things when I could just scroll here. Oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Getting cranky around all of those things. I would compare myself a lot to the things that I was viewing. I'd compare my life to the things I was seeing. I would even compare like the different relationships in my life to the things I was seeing. So all really just like unhealthy, unhelpful thoughts and behaviors. Yeah. And I started noticing, like, because this was also happening at a time when I was struggling with other things, job related things, and I was also kind of depressed. But I just noticed like it compounded with that. Like, I wasn't really relaxing after really long, difficult days from work. I was just feeling even more drained, like we were talking about. So I realized this about 2 years ago, and I kind of initiated. I'm not one to be all or nothing, so I didn't like fully unplug from social media or anything, but I started creating like really more stricter boundaries for myself. That's so kind of good. What you talked about earlier. And it was the stuff that you were talking about earlier, what could be helpful. So I had like time limits. Nothing in particular. I didn't have apps back then. I was kind of already got in the habit before this age of like, put a time limit on it. So I would just kind of pay attention to when I got on my phone. So in the past, I would be on my phone like in the mornings and evenings when I woke up, before I went to bed. And throughout the day, I wouldn't be on my phone unless it was like a quick 5-minute like check-in on something in particular. That worked for a while for me. And then another big thing, unfollowing accounts that did not bring me joy or did not add any value to my life. That's deleted. That's gone. Good. Yeah. Because if you're going to spend so much time of your life on your phone anyway, might as well be something that gives you something positive or even neutral. Yeah, exactly. That's a good thing to share. Yeah. I've heard a lot of people actually do that. Like kind of clean out, like a cleaning of your social media and your following. Every once in a while, yeah. Little spring cleaning for your social media accounts. Exactly. Yeah. And the other thing that I've been actually really noticing this year, I've been way more intentional about fine tuning the things I've been learning. Like I said, after I saw that human child life development specialist talk about tantrums increasing with more screen time, I got really into understanding how else does it affect kids? How else does it affect us adults? And
Mm-hmm.
so the things that I noticed, either read or noticed actually, and like the people around me, because, I'm in Dallas, I have a lot of the younger kiddos in my
Mm-hmm.
family. So things that I've been noticing are the things that you and I talked about: shorter attention span, needing
Mm-hmm.
constant stimulation or entertainment of some
Mm-hmm.
kind. When I call my Gen Z cousins, they're talking to me while on their phone playing a game
Yeah.
or scrolling through
Yeah.
social media. And I'm like, hey, pay attention.
Yeah.
But I can't blame them. Even Abby does that. My husband does it all the time. Sometimes he's just like, while he's talking to his mom. And I'm always like, shh, pay attention to her. Like, stop being on your
Mm.
phone. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's a habit.
Yeah. Like
We
you don't
need
even
more than
realize it.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So this multitasking like behavior and the overconsumption, basically the way that it's affecting people, the way I see it, is your attention to detail diminishes
Mm.
because you're constantly thinking about something. You're training your brain to
Yeah.
constantly be focused on something else, whether it's a thought or you're playing something like podcast or music while you're doing something,
Right.
or you're watching TV while you're cooking. I'm definitely guilty of that. Working on it really, really slowly, but guilty of that. And I'm noticing, like, even Adi and I were talking about it the other day. The days he notices he uses his phone a lot more, he feels really irritable. Like, he can tell.
Mm.
The days he uses it less, he feels like he's able to tap into his emotional awareness and
That's
regulation more.
good. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
absolutely. And I think it's just, again, a reminder, right? A general reminder to us and, anybody listening, we
Yeah.
don't need constant pleasure, constant entertainment. Because if we engage in that kind of level of constancy, then we're changing our equilibrium, and anything in like a normal day-to-day life will no longer be
Mm.
interesting to us. It'll be boring.
No.
We'll no
Yeah.
longer know how to just be, live,
Mm.
be in silence, engage
Yeah.
socially. And it's breeding a lonelier generation of people every single generation.
Yeah. You're right. I
Yeah,
mean, it's a direct relation to like social cues and connections, right? Like, yes, you can make digital connection on the internet, social media, but those types of connections are completely different than when you're in person, right? There's like that eye contact, that
absolutely.
nonverbal communication, like body language, all those skills are
Yeah.
built through in-person
Oh, yeah.
interactions. Like even like kids
Exactly.
like that are like, in elementary school or older that I know of that I've used technology for a really long time. Like even some patients I work with, like it's just hard for them to speak to strangers or
Yeah.
other people that they're not familiar with because they
Yeah.
just haven't practiced those skills.
Exactly.
Like the
Yeah.
lack of eye contact, the lack of like, gestures or looking up at someone when they're talking to you.
Hmm.
All those things play a role. And so
Oh, yeah. And it
you're
stunts
absolutely
them
right.
emotionally too, like being able to know their emotions and being able to
Mm-hmm.
regulate their emotions, which is a huge, huge, huge important life skill
It
every person needs to
is.
know. And
Yeah.
as adults, there's so many of us who already struggle. Imagine what it's going to be like for kids.
Right. Right.
So difficult. Oof. Scary world. Scary
It
world.
is. It is.
But, as always, coming back to a message of hope here, as always, nothing we talk about is good or bad.
Right.
Very divided. Everything is a balance. So with this, screens, digital things, tools, apps, they're
Mm-hmm.
not bad. They help us with our productivity. So much of our life is now digital, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. But the
AI
part is
now.
knowing where to draw the balance.
Yeah.
What is that?
I said AI is out now, right? Like, oh,
AI. Okay, don't even get me started. So scary. I don't even want to get into it. It's so scary.
should be another episode.
Oh goodness. You would literally just be me like with my hoodie on, be like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Because there's some scary stuff on AI.
Yeah, there
We'll
is.
have a conversation.
There is. But you're right. Like, these conversations need to be had, and it doesn't mean like someone's doing something bad or good, right? It's just awareness.
Awareness.
And
It's
yeah,
awareness.
right,
What serves you? That's it.
right,
There's no shaming here. It's more
right.
what serves you and what doesn't, giving you a moment
Mm-hmm.
to kind of introspect. Like for me, for example, being on my phone throughout the day doesn't serve me. But watching TV in the background while I cook, I like it. I'm not giving that up
Yeah,
anytime soon. And I'm not going to shame
yeah.
myself for it. But I do recognize that it does make me irritable when my husband's out here. He's like, hey, talk to me. I'm like, no, I'm watching TV. Even though I've really watched this TV like 20 times, 30
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Awareness, right?
Awareness.
We don't have to make everything a change, but
it's good to
work with
know.
yourself. What you can do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Thanks for
right.
sharing.
Well, that's it for my story.
I appreciate all the things that you shared. Like, I think you sharing about like the different, consequences that you've experienced, because that is so awesome. Like, look at your awareness, right? I'm still building that awareness of myself, but like we're just at such different levels, which is so cool to see too, right? Like, even though I'm at that part of the stage of reflection where I'm realizing it's happening, but maybe like a little bit more time down the road, like I'll realize like how am I emotionally being affected, because I'm sure there are like emotional consequences that I experience with all of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you sharing and being vulnerable and sharing all the things that you've experienced with technology.
Absolutely. This is what quote unquote failing gives people, right? Opportunities to learn about themselves.
Exactly.
All right. Shall I see us out?
Yes.
Okie dokes. So as always, just a gentle reminder, if our podcast resonated with you and you'd like to share your story or your opinions on digital addiction, what you notice, what you see, then, message us. You can reach us at talksouthasiantome@gmail.com, or you can find us on any and all the socials at the handle at talksouthasiantome.
Yes.
Stay tuned for our next episode. Take care.
Bye.